Do it. We are live on YouTube. Let's give it a minute. Let me see here. So, how are you guys? Talk amongst yourselves. So, we had to skip last week because of the holidays. Trevor, I know you reminded me. I thought we'd get one in, but that it was not to be. But how was everybody's holiday?
I'll let Trevor go first.
All right. Well, fantastic. Okay, so my holiday was, I'd say, pretty darn good. Had a lot of mashed potatoes and gravy, a lot of pumpkin pie, sweet potato casserole was also fantastic, and got to watch some good NFL games. I'd say I did make $1 for betting my brother that the Buffalo Bills would beat the Cowboys, and they did. So that's something.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't bet on football. We got the Detroit Lions here, and that's just a losing bet every time, especially against Bro's Chicago Bears, right?
Yeah, I'm not into sports, but whatever you say, Rob.
Right now, clearly, I'm not into the NFL for sure. But yeah, great Thanksgiving, nice relaxing holiday, and ready to plow back into some Mandalorian episode 4.
Yeah, that's awesome. I had to work on Thanksgiving, but I had a nice dinner with some broadcast peeps, and good times were had.
Good.
Let's see who's in the chat room. Josiah Ward. I hope I am pronouncing that correctly. Mr. Westcott, how you doing? How's it going? I think. You've got a signed Mandalorian. Coming your way. I think I just stuck that in the mail. I'm like, that name sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Anyways, how is everybody?
Great. Yeah, I just sent a couple of signed Mandalorian Dominic Pace photos out today myself.
Yeah, awesome.
Won our Mandovember giveaway.
Yeah. So we are halfway through the season of The Mandalorian, season 1. Hard to believe. It's been quite a ride. But what do you guys think overall? I mean, I know we've had expectations. We talked a little bit, independently, but we had some expectations going into the first, live action TV series for a Star Wars. And I want to say I've been pleasantly surprised. I know I've had some expectations about how it should look, how it should feel, that sort of thing. But what are your guys' pretty much overall feelings about the show? Rob, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think that they're hitting the perfect spot for me. One of the things that I always loved about Star Wars original trilogy was the fact that it was definitely kind of a gritty, lived-in world, and they've kind of taken that to the next level. We're dealing with Outer Rim locales, and everything's just a little bit grimier, a little bit grungier. The stormtroopers clearly aren't keeping the specs on their armor cleanliness, and loving kind of the feel. Having read a lot of the expanded universe novels and followed that stuff pretty closely growing up, to kind of see it breaking down into these warlords kind of in the Outer Rim trying to consolidate power after the fall of the core galactic empire. They seem to be hitting that, and clearly Jon Favreau is dedicated to making sure that he ties in with a lot of these Sergio Leone westerns that Star Wars was kind of inspired by, and in this particular episode, certainly some of that Seven Samurai kind of feel for this particular show.
Yeah, I agree. Trevor?
Yeah, I agree as well. I mean, I have not seen Seven Samurai, but one thing that I know for sure is that just this episode, Chapter 4, was very similar to Bounty Hunters from Season 2 of the Clone Wars,
right,
which I guess I'm pretty sure is also a homage to the Seven Samurai movie as well. But in terms of just the show in general, I mean, I'm really loving just the vast majority of what the show has offered in terms of this character, the Mandalorian, and what sets him apart from just other bounty hunters or just other Mandalorian in general. How he's, and I think it starts, with how he was treating, the Nick Nolte Ugnaught, asking him, here's some money, take it, you deserve this. Whereas most bounty hunters would have just, said, all right, maybe thanks, but they wouldn't have gone out of their way to do that. And it expands whenever Mandalorian goes to take the Baby Yoda back instead of just flying off to go to that new Mon Calamari bounty that he acquired, and it just expands from there with his character.
Yeah, I agree. Trevor, you and I were talking about our favorite episodes thus far, and we did mention that 3 was probably still our favorite. And Josiah had mentioned that episode 4 was good, but for him it was a little on the weaker side of the series so far. Still a good episode, but Rob, which episode so far has been your favorite?
I would probably go back to the very first episode. I thought that hit on a lot of notes for me. It certainly established the feel of what the show was going to be like. I know that some people kind of not took exception, but had a little bit of an issue with some of the comedic moments in it. But I really thought that the Mandalorian IG-11 team up in that particular episode was awesome. And the fact that they had the huge reveal of Baby Yoda, #spoiler alert, which is, I had heard some rumors prior to the show coming out that it was really going to be about him kind of protecting a child throughout the first season. But I don't think anyone was really ready to call that particular, surprise, I guess, that they launched on us.
Yeah, that character was definitely a surprise. Even before, when there were some leaked images of the shooting of the on set, I kind of had a feeling that he was going to be protecting a child. I think Alex and I were kind of joking around that what if that child turns out to be Rey? There was a little bit of discussion there. But let's get right into chapter 4. What was the name of this chapter, Trevor? Do you remember?
Yes, it's Sanctuary, which I was surprised just on the fact that it didn't start off with the word "the," because we had the child, sin, and then sanctuary, and then we still have no subtitle for chapter 1, which I kind of wish we did have a subtitle for that, but I digress on that.
Actually, real quick, I just had a work call the other day, and someone had a beeping sound in the background, and I thought someone had a puck, right? Like, who's got the puck?
Who's got the puck? Is it me? But yeah, this one directed by Ron Howard's daughter. Quickly remind me her name. Bryce Dallas Howard. And the guys over at Rebel Force Radio were talking about how this is like the very first ever, father-daughter team up Star Wars directorial debut in a film like this, in a project like this. So that's awesome. I think she did a really great job. There were definitely shout outs to Willow, obviously directed by her father. There were shout outs, one of the Jurassic movie that she was in with the the chicken walkers. What do you guys think of the storyline?
All right, Rob, you can go first on this.
All right. No, I mean, I thought that, he's in a place right now where he's kind of on the run. He was clearly needing a place to hide out. And I don't really know how those pucks work. Why he would have really thought he was going to be able to find sanctuary. But, we were at episode 4 of this season, and Gina Carano was a main character that we were expecting to see. And I was a little surprised that it took this long for them to get around to her. But she definitely has a great presence on screen. And I love, the fact that he's kind of starting to build this family around him. No one's really signed on for traveling with him day to day, but you can see that, as with so many of the great Star Wars stories, these people just kind of get drawn together through the course of the events, and they form their own little families. And I think they're headed in a good direction with the core group that they're building up around the Mando.
Yeah, definitely. So we've got a comment from Carl. He's asking how many seasons are there expected to be. Carl, from shows like this, you see it in Netflix, you see it on other streaming services. Usually they have like a 5-season like overarching plan. I'm not sure how this series is going to be shaping up. Obviously they've already announced that a season 2 has been greenlit, and they're probably they're probably shooting it. currently. But yeah, I mean, looking forward to it. Looking forward to more Mandalorian. I really enjoy, and I'm really expecting great things from a storyline perspective with Dave Filoni. Obviously, he knows this world. He knows the characters, and I'm really looking forward to the conclusion of season one. To see what happens. What do you think, Trevor?
Okay, well, just in terms of like how many seasons are going to be, because for that question, I mean, I hope there's like at least 4. Tie it with a number that Rebels has. But I mean, it really just depends on how much story they can have, as well as just how popular this Mandalorian show is. Because I mean, I don't want it to get like The Simpsons, where it just runs it to the ground with 30 plus. I mean, yeah, it's not going to have 30 plus seasons, but still, like, I want it to end on a significant note, but have each thing just work coherently, and hopefully all of these fans can enjoy it as they seem to be so far.
Yeah, definitely. There were some complaints that that so far the series has been, for the most part, kind of cinematic. We're going into episode 1 or chapter 1. We're all expecting, kind of a shorter but equally exciting Star Wars-like project. And yes, we've definitely gotten that. One of my complaints early on was that I was missing seeing a lot of wide shots, a lot of grand shots of the environment. I wanted to see a lot more. There were some really nice, shots of the Mandalorian walking through the town, and that was really nice. But I think the first 2 episodes, I was missing those wide shots. And then when in chapter 3, when we got Deborah Chow directing, I saw a lot more of those wide shots. I saw some shots in chapter 4 that are very reminiscent to some wider shots and more cinematic thing. But the only thing is that, like, when they were being chased by the walker through that forest,
Mm-hmm.
it for me, it kind of had like that Star Trek feel, like that forest was fake. I almost heard the Star Trek fight song. Da, 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 da. What do you guys think about the overall feel of the show? And obviously, since each episode is directed by a different director, do you guys feel that from a cohesive level, everything is kind of like, seems tied together, or are we seeing that each director is kind of bringing their own thing to it, where it's a little bit more less of like one project and more like single episodes directed by different people? Trevor, do you have any, or Rob, who wants to start?
I can go. Yeah, I mean, in regards to the wide shots, at least the feel that I've gotten from it is that in the first couple episodes, I think it was a little bit more closed in on the Mandalorian himself, because he was really more of a sole character within the film or within the series. And it was really focused just on him. And I think kind of as his world has expanded, we're starting to get some of those wider shots. I wouldn't be surprised if, in regards to how they're handling the direction of the various episodes, they're kind of doling them out to people based on what they feel that particular director's strength is and what they're trying to bring out in that episode. So I do think that they're trying to go for more of a unified story and a unified method of storytelling. But I wouldn't be at all surprised if they have some flexibility within each episode to kind of express themselves however they do directorially.
Yeah, I agree. Trevor?
Okay. I mean, I'm not exactly for sure how to answer this question about like the directors and their individual vision, or sticking like to the script, sticking to this thing.
Do you see a difference in style in the way that the director places a camera or composes a shot? Do you see a difference in chapter per chapter?
I mean, I would say yes, but I think it's, I don't know. At least for right now, it's difficult for me to come up with different examples. But I will say that I am interested in how each, because we have 3 directors that are directing. 2 of them we have Dave Filoni, Rick F. and Deborah Chow, they're all going to be the next, five, 6, and 7, and then Taika Waititi's directing the finale. So I want to see how well, these shots, from episode 1 to episode 5 that Dave Filoni has, and then 2 to 6, how those are paralleled, I guess, in different ways, because they're from the same director, each getting 2 chances for an episode.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, besides some of those subliminal or subtle things, I really don't see a major difference. It's not like, it's not like, someone like Quentin Tarantino is coming in and directing something and just kind of like blowing things out. Obviously everybody knows he's got a certain style, but I think for the most part they are keeping kind of a consistency. So I'm pretty cool with that. One of the things, obviously, that I hope, and Rob, you had mentioned it, I hope they explain the trackers. I want to make sure that that people, kind of. Right now, we're kind of like taking it on faith, and everybody is guessing: are they DNA trackers? Does everybody get some sort of implants implanted in their system beforehand, and that's how people are tracked? So it'll be an interesting thing once we find out. What do you guys think about the trackers? Is that kind of? I mean, devil's advocate. Somebody has told me. Or I read somewhere that it might be kind of like a lazy theme device. Yeah.
I can agree with that, because I'm still confused about how these tracking fobs really function. If it's if it's similar to how R2 scans for life forms in the immediate area, like he was trying to do on Hoth whenever Luke was, out freezing in the cold, or just other things like that, or if it's like there's a chip inside of Baby Yoda that somehow got planted, and it's using GPS, or
but that's like GPS at a global scale.
Exactly.
That's like really reaching.
I know, and see, I wanted to learn a little bit more information about these tracking fobs. So about half an hour before this show started, went to Star Wars Wikipedia tracking fob, and this is a very small description of what it is. So it really told me nothing, just devices used by bounty hunters to track their quarries, and the bounty hunter would return the fobs after catching their bounty as proof of capture. It's just a small little paragraph. So that, I'm sorry, Star Wars Wiki, but you didn't really help me out on this one. So.
They're conveniently programmed by each episode's plot. And
yeah, so let's a couple of comments from folks. Carl says Taika Waititi, great new director and a New Zealander. So yay for that. Carl is in New Zealand. Let's see who else. Yeah, tracking DNA. We talked about that. So Charles says tracker, in my opinion, a chip or a device that transmits across space, inserted into beings of interest or people in debt. So that would be kind of a very interesting storyline or a very interesting way of tracking people. I had heard somebody too that said that during the reign of the Empire, that people that were born had some sort of DNA registration or something like that, so it's easy for people to find. And then somebody had mentioned that, well, if that's the case, why didn't Vader just tune into Luke's frequency and find him? But obviously Luke was born off the grid, as they say, and that's one of the reasons that he remained hidden. So I guess, from that perspective,
you have to go back and watch Solo, a Star Wars story again, and see if maybe Baby Yoda was at that table when they were playing Sabacc. He might have run up some debt.
Totally. Yeah.
And then one more thing is, I just wonder how much different would The Force Awakens be if instead of a map to Luke Skywalker, they all had tracking fobs to them. Like,
oh yeah,
I don't know. That's just something.
Yeah. So let's get back to what did you guys think of the Kara explanation as far as her role? It seems like the Mandalorian recognized her right away. Obviously, they explained that she was a shock trooper for the rebellion, but I'm thinking,
we lost Ro.
Isn't a shock trooper from the Empire? or is it a shock trooper that was converted and went to work for the rebellion? I'm not exactly sure how that is. Trevor, you've got Wikipedia open. Why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
Okay, well, I got nothing off the top of my head, so I mean, unless Rob wants to talk about, I can look up shock trooper.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine that the Rebels had their own version of that, so I don't really have an issue with them going that route with her character, and just the feel I got of the scene where he kind of notices her sitting in that cantina, or whatever you want to call that he walked into, the establishment that he walked into. I just would think that with his character, he's always kind of on high alert for people who may be a threat, especially considering that he's on the run, and given the experience he's had with every other person that he sees, has basically got a tracking fob out on him. So
do you get a sense that he knew her? Because he pinpointed her right away. It's like, hey, how long has she been here?
Yeah, I didn't get the feeling that he really knew her. I think he just recognized her out of the entire crowd of people that was in there as being someone who was out of place and could potentially be a threat to him.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and she's a badass, huh? She held her own with the Mandalorian fighting outside the hut, so that was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what stole the show was Baby Yoda
Right.
sipping on his soup.
Yeah,
that was great. One of the things that bothered me about The Last Jedi was the humor, but the humor in this, for some reason, is a little different, and I have to kind of maybe try to examine that to see why it's different. I think Alex a while ago was talking about situational comedy, or situations that call for a little bit of levity, and I think this has it. Obviously, Baby Yoda playing around with the switches on the ship. You have IG-11's reactions to Mandalorian, so it is a little bit more. It's different. The humor is kind of like built into the situation, where it's not creating the situation like it kind of did in The Last Jedi. That was kind of a front and center situation for humor. But are you guys cool with how they're portraying humor in the Star Wars universe in this?
I mean, I'd say so for right now. Like that moment of him sipping soup was, I mean, it was just a great comedic moment. Like there's nothing else really to say other than, because you have those 2 pointing guns, and then here he is sipping. Like, I mean, the jokes writes itself. And then another just amazing joke that I really liked would be how they sliced open the egg at the end of chapter 2 and just grabbed their hands full of the guts inside there as their breakfast. I mean,
a hairy Cadbury egg, right?
Right. That's what that was.
Everybody. Yeah, I totally agree with Trevor, because the thing that has always been done really well in Star Wars as a whole has been the humor and fitting it in. So it's kind of these off-the-cuff comments made in stressful moments where it just lightens the scenario a little bit, and they did an amazing job of it in the original trilogy. I felt like they did a lot of it really well within Force Awakens, which is why the beginning of the sequel trilogy, I felt very positive about the direction it was going. But I felt like in The Last Jedi, it was a lot of the humor was forced. And trying to be funny, and I would say that the difference between someone who thinks they're funny and someone who's truly funny is just understanding, being able to read a situation or read the room, or understand how far to take it without going overboard with it. And within The Mandalorian, they seem to be hitting that note very well with most of the episodes they put out so far.
That's not how the Force works.
That is not how the Force works. You came in that thing?
Yeah, that's I agree with you. I think they're peppering in, like Charles is saying here, they're peppering in the humor very well. But so let's talk a little bit about, and Trevor, you're going to help us. You're going to have to help us out here in Mandalorian lore. This episode was really good as far as helping to try explain a little bit about the Mandalorian culture. He talked a lot about his helmet, taking off the helmet, not taking it off. What do you guys think? It seems like they're really setting the stage for being able to see who he is underneath the helmet. And somebody had mentioned that they hope that they don't do that too soon in this series, just to kind of keep that mystery. But I kind of like it. I kind of see one thing that I did notice is that he took off his helmet when he started to eat, and then the female character left him the food and walked away, and he took the helmet off in the window. But the kids were playing, and he wasn't really too worried about if the kids turned around to see him. And I think there's something there. Obviously, he was found as a child by the Mandalorians. We have that as a fact based on the flashbacks. He's very thoughtful with the Yoda child. He's also very thoughtful with the Mandalorian foundlings. So he's got some sort of connection with being a child, and there's a kind of a very childlike, innocence or caring with his character. So I think those are some of the subtle clues that I think we have to kind of pay attention to. But going back to the helmet, Trevor, there are factions of Mandalorians because they talked about their religion and their culture. Talk a little bit about that aspect of Star Wars and the Mandalorian culture. What do you know about that?
Okay, well, yeah, it's a bit beyond my knowledge, but I think it was articulated in episode 1 as soon as his bounty is talking with him on the ship before he gets frozen in carbonite and says, "Is it true that you guys never take off your helmets?" But back in the Clone Wars and Rebels, that really wasn't much of a thing. I mean, yeah, a lot of those background, Mandalorians never really showed their faces, but I mean, Death Watch didn't have a no helmet off if anyone else is around policy, because we see Pre Vizsla, Bo-Katan take their helmets off. Sabine takes her helmet off so many times in Rebel, and not just that, but her family, her mother, her brother Tristan takes their helmets off, and then same thing with Finn Rao and Protectors of Concord Donis. He has his helmet off, drinking whenever Kanan shows up, talking some others, so plenty of occasions in which their helmets are off in front of other people that aren't Mandalorians or any other thing. But I mean, I guess maybe it's just for this faction that the Mandalorians from this underground thing where he, gets his armor forged and stuff, that's their policy of sorts, that's part of their tradition.
And before Rob says something, I want to interject something real fast. I was thinking, what if this Mandalorian clan that found the Mandalorian, what if that's a story that they told him, and it's not really an overall no helmets off scenario, but what if that's a story that they told him to protect his identity, and that's why we're not seeing who he is to begin with. And later on, as the story progresses, we find out that he's, I don't know, someone of importance.
Yeah, it just doesn't mean it's a protection for him.
Right.
Yeah. Either that or they don't want to look at that mustache.
Right. But yeah, it's something to protect him. Who knows? Maybe, I don't know. He might be someone important, and if somebody sees him, that they'll realize who that is.
Yeah, Charles had just posted a comment about no masks off post purge, and that was kind of the line of thinking that I had going as well, which is that the big thing that's changed since the Clone Wars, since Rebels, has been that the Mandalorian purge occurred, and clearly they've been driven into hiding, and so it may have something to do with that. This enclave that they had on the planet that we saw in the first couple episodes was supposedly hush hush, and the fact that they came out of that enclave to save him in episode 3 from Dominic and his band of ne'er-do-wells there. But I do think that that's a really important point, or an interesting point, that he may very well be someone who has some importance that we just haven't discovered yet within the show, and I think that would be kind of a cool way for them to go.
And Dave Filoni, man, he's full of surprises. Favreau, they are a powerhouse of creative writers, and I'm so glad that they're in this together. But yeah, we're chapter 4. We get chapter 4. Who's directing chapter 5?
That's Dave Filoni.
Dave Filoni. Oh, yeah. So that gets me double excited. But Yeah, I mean, this was a great episode. Like I said, there was some things that I was surprised at. I loved. People thought it was kind of a filler episode. So far I haven't really seen a filler episode, and obviously with something like Clone Wars or Rebels that is longer, a longer run. You've got some episodes that are a little slowed down, but I really didn't. I didn't have that feeling like this is a filler episode. There were no droids singing in space, so that it really wasn't. I didn't really, qualify this as a filler episode. And sometimes, with a show this intense, you got to have some moments to kind of like, let the audience breathe. And I think this is one of them. Charles Westcott has got. He reminded us of the Loth Cat. That's pretty badass. When I think my son and I, when we were watching that episode, we both were like, "Oh my God, there! Look at the Loth Cat."
Yeah.
So that was really, really great. Was fuzzy felines. Yes, Charles.
The other thing I would point out is that when Rebels was going on, the episode with the Purrgil was an episode that everyone thought was just complete fluff and filler episode, and yet it comes back in the entire show finale to be a huge portion of what ends up shaking out in that final confrontation between Ezra and Thrawn. So as far as Filoni's concerned, I'm always very hesitant to think anything is filler. He usually has got an idea of where things are going down the road. I'm sure that, he and Favreau have kind of mapped out a roadmap. And especially with only 8 episodes and the fact that they're not super long episodes, I have a hard time believing they're going to do a lot that they don't plan on doing something with down the road.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So I have a question then for you, Rob, or I guess you, Ro, as well. But so I think it's pretty obvious that Cara Dune will show up again. But you think this is the last we see of Omera? Former woman.
I don't know, because they made a big deal that she's the only one that can shoot a gun in the village. I think she was a very interesting character, and I really want to learn more about her. Like Rob said, it's almost like he's meeting these people in each chapter, and later on he's gonna, we'll be able to see IG-88 again. We'll be able to see Cara Dune again, go on one like last mission. And from the marketing standpoint, the 3 were together, so I want to believe that they'll be together again too in a subsequent episode, doing one last thing before the season ends.
He's going to bring them all together in episode 8, and he's going to do a brand new holiday special to kind of.
Oh yeah.
I think it's all lining up for that, right?
It's it's going to be Life Day.
Right.
The Life Day is going to be chapter 8.
No helmet day or whatever they want to call it.
No comment.
Helmets off.
No.
No, and actually, Charles made a good point that the mother of the young girl in this particular episode, and I'm sorry, I'm blanking on her name, but she was also out there with the children when he took his helmet off. So I just remember when he set his helmet down on the ledge there, it's like one-way glass there. Anyone could have looked up and seen him. So it did seem like it was kind of a bold move on his part.
Well, for me, not as much. So Omera's, the woman, and then Winta is her daughter. Okay. But just for that moment itself, it seemed like he was putting more emphasis on, keeping eyes on Baby Yoda to protect him. And he's like, okay, these kids, they freaking love Baby Yoda. They love playing around with him. They're not going to turn around and see, me with my helmet on. And even if so, then I can just step over to the side. So therefore I'm not in the window. Yeah. That's just, my perspective of it.
Yeah. Plus it wasn't in the script, so he was safe.
Yeah.
So Aaron had a really good point. He says that what if the Mandalorian, so the end of this season, I think butts up kind of close to the Rise of Skywalker release. I think
it goes 8 days past, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 27th is the season 1 finale.
Right.
So Aaron is saying that what if the Mandalorians went to the rebellion or the resistance, and this ties into the next film in some way? He can't imagine that they missed a tie-in opportunity like that. So that's kind of a really good observation.
Well, I think the Resistance isn't around anytime. It's just the New Republic.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
true. That's
I
true.
have read
Yeah.
Bloodline, and that's
Right.
kind of it. Is that it doesn't start to form until about, I don't know, like 6 years before Force Awakens, like at the earliest, and we're at like 6 years after Return of the Jedi. So there's
Right.
still
There's still a lot of
20-year
time.
gap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
I
would
mean, it's
definitely
still,
say with the Purge, though, they would be far more likely if they had to pick a side. I would definitely say they would align with the Resistance or, anyone opposed to the Empire, given the fact that the Empire came in and essentially purged Mandalore.
we should see if well, we don't know what the rest of the Mandalorian ships look like, but maybe the Razor Crest is in that shot with the Millennium Falcon somewhere in there.
I actually thought it kind of looked like it was directly below the Millennium Falcon, kind of in the distance. There's a little bit of a difference in terms of, the Razor Crest almost has more of a Y. Both of the wings slant upwards a little, and there's a shot in the background where the wings are more level, but they have the engines. But the first thing I thought when I saw that was that could totally be the Razor Crest, just depending on the perspective of that particular shot. And Aaron promised to squeal if they end up, so I do believe we get a video
I'll squeal.
that occurs.
Definitely, we'll do a squealing reaction video if the Mandos show up. That would be amazing. But
is the squeal going to be louder than the Loth cat shrieking at Baby Yoda? Because I mean, I love that Loth cat appearance, but I think that shriek was a little bit too loud and unnecessary. Unless that's just that Loth cat's nature to everyone.
Could be.
Given that the Baby Yoda is sticking everything he sees in his mouth, it may have known it was in trouble.
Yeah. What do you guys think of that ATST?
Ugh.
Was there somebody driving in it? It seemed like somebody was saying that they didn't show anybody driving it, and maybe it was automated. But I obviously since we know somebody's supposed to be driving it, I think it would have been nice if when he threw that or when he put fire inside the cabins, it's we'd hear somebody scream or try to get out.
Yeah, they missed an opportunity there, I feel like. But I think the ATST was a great example of just how in this lawless edge of the galaxy, how this Imperial tech that has been floating around and been used to kind of keep the peace out there has been usurped by whatever the local groups are, and they've kind of been using it for their own purposes. And in this particular case, I mean, these raiders were able to pretty much waltz in unopposed and just raid this town to their content every time until they had this pushback. So I would certainly think that no town of villagers is going to stand up very well to an ATST or really any of the technology the Empire would have been wielding out there.
Yeah, and I like the fact that since the Empire died and there's technology, like you said, all over the place, and people are able to kind of commandeer that, use it to their own. There's a little bit of that in Jedi Fallen Order at the beginning of the game, where the main character works at a kind of a junkyard, dismantling old Imperial ships, old Republic ships that are coming into the scrapyard. And I think that's pretty cool. We're getting a glimpse of what happens to all this stuff once the people in charge are gone. What do you do? It's almost it's a very interesting time that they selected to pick for us to go back to.
They're tying that planet Braca that you're talking about, where they're essentially dismantling all these old ships. And in that particular game, they're the Venerator cruisers that not the Rebellion, but the Grand Army, the Republic had used, the Clone Army had used, were basically being stripped down. But that actually is still going on in Resistance Reborn, the book that just came out. That planet is actually referenced in that book, as well as a place where the rebels or the Resistance is going to kind of restock some of their ships. So they seem to be doing a really good job across all the different media that they've got out there, kind of tying some of these things together in a lot of this newer content that they're putting out there. So I wouldn't be surprised if that were to be something that maybe comes into play in The Mandalorian or some of these other series that we're seeing as well.
Yeah, I think they're doing a fantastic job tying all that stuff together. I'm really enjoying seeing like little snippets and little aspects of the galaxy post Empire. and it's a period in this Star Wars universe that's always intrigued me. I liked Solo. That's one of the reasons I really enjoyed Solo, because you can see not that the Empire was there, but this the Empire was at its heyday. You saw the Empire kind of in cahoots with criminal underworld. I like that interaction, and now with the Mandalorian, there is the Empire's gone, but there's still kind of criminal factions and what did he say, warlords that are kind of in charge of areas. I really want to see them kind of dive a little more into that aspect as well.
I wouldn't be surprised if we see Giancarlo Esposito show up in this next episode. He's another character.
Oh, that's right.
That they hit pretty hard on, and I'll be interested to see kind of what role he's playing. I mean, he definitely seems like someone who would be running one of these factions of the Empire, kind of out there on the Outer Rim, trying to consolidate power. And
he's got some Death Troopers with him.
Yep.
I love those Death Troopers.
I know, they are pretty awesome looking.
And I'm wondering, he's probably, well, we won't speculate. We'll see what happens once that episode shows. But yeah, Trevor, any thoughts going forward? What do you think the second half of The Mandalorian is going to look like?
Well, yeah, you're asking me that, and I'm just thinking of that one shot where the Mandalorian walks out of the door, has a stormtrooper, and just blasts him right there, and then kicks another one. Yeah, I'm waiting for that scene, but I can't really. Well, that, and then what? Bill Burr, is that?
Oh yeah, the other bounty hunter.
Yeah, I'm excited for his character. Whatever introduction he gets, and then he'll have a blaster, a third one behind his back to help him out in some gunfight. I mean, those are the only things I can really say, because from the trailers itself, the
Twi'lek, Twi'lek that was walking also in the trailer.
Yeah,
she's the actress that played, and I don't remember. She was in Game of Thrones. She was the one that was accompanying the blind or the crippled kid across the land.
Oh, really? That was his sister?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the same actress. Can't remember her name.
Yeah.
But I saw that she had posted her shot in the trailer, and I recognized her from Game of Thrones. And let me tell you, I like me some Twi'lek.
Mm-hmm. Definitely that cocky, that kind of cocky like that.
Okay, wait. So, which Twi'lek do you like better between Ayla Secura and Harrison Dula?
Ooh,
I don't know.
Okay.
Why do we have to choose?
What? Well, I mean, I don't know. You were talking about Twi'lek women, and those were the two that came to my mind to ask you. So.
I'll take
he
these.
He didn't say women. He just said Twi'lek. So
okay, all right, fine.
Could have been Chancellor.
I'll scrap that from the transcript of this.
Exactly. Charles was right there with me. So
yeah, all heck is going to break loose. Yeah. What about
Cham?
Yeah. All right. Yeah, Cham Syndulla is pretty darn good. I'll give him that. Okay, in both Clone Wars and Rebels.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
One of the things I did like about Episode 4 is the scene where Cara Dune and the Mandalorian are kind of fighting outside the pub. The shot that they end up on, where they both got the gun pointed at each other, was a total callback to The Matrix, with Neo and Agent Smith in the train station there. So both of them ended up on the floor with the blaster pointed at each other. So that was kind of a cool. Kind of, I won't call it a ripoff, but certainly harken back to that.
Sure.
And as far as what's going to happen in the rest of season 1, I'm almost wondering if Giancarlo Esposito and his henchmen are going to somehow get a hold of Baby Yoda, and that's what's going to cause the Mandalorian to have to go recruit Gina Carano and the Bill Burr character, and possibly even Queel. I don't know how you pronounce it. To kind of get together and somehow get him back from them.
And they're going to go to the Imperial Los Pollos Hermanos.
I love it. I love it. Uncover the map lab and Baby Yoda.
The real Archaeo had posted that. That's hilarious. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
funny.
And then one thing I will say that I found pretty interesting about Chapter 4 is that heat signature footprint tech that the Mandalorian had to, locate where he thought Kara would be, and then as well as locating the ATST and stuff. I mean, that seems like a useful tool that, will help him out in the future.
Yeah.
I think as the episodes roll out, I would love to see, and I guess we're getting that. I love seeing the Mandalorian's technology, what he uses, everything from that the flame wrist thrower to the grappling hook. Like Trevor, you mentioned the heat-seeking vision. I think as a bounty hunter and as someone as cool as a Mandalorian, he's got all that stuff on his suit. I think, as we learn a little bit more about that technology, I think we're going to be really surprised. He's got some really, really cool stuff that he works with.
Those whistling birds were awesome. That I'd never seen a Mandalorian, use in any of the prior content. So, the grapple line and the flamethrower, those are, typical things that we see on those Mandalorian gauntlets. But those singing birds were pretty crazy.
They were pretty awesome. And I think that's one of the reasons I really enjoyed episode 3 or chapter 3 was, again, my love for stormtroopers. I love stormtroopers. I love the way they look, but hunting, having them hunt the Mandalorian in that warehouse was really, really cool, really fun. And, somebody had said that it had kind of like a video game feel to it where, you were just, killing troopers, but it's really, really great visuals there, and I can't wait for this Friday.
Yeah, actually, Charles commented about the Predator heat tech on the Mandalorian's helmet, and that also kind of translates over to that Bill Burr character, right? The gun kind of back, very much like the Predator with this shoulder rocket launcher or laser, whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
Well, okay, and then just another thing that I really liked from this episode is the scene where the 2 farmers are trying to recruit the Mandalorian for the job in general. And I mean, we had some pretty good dialogue whenever that they handed him the credits, and he's like, "It's not enough." He's like, "Are you sure you don't even know what the job is?" And he's like, "I know it's not enough. Good luck." And then it proceeds to go whenever he asks, "Where do you live?" And they said, "On a farm. Weren't you listening?" I don't know. That's just really good dialogue. And I mean, I couldn't help but just appreciate that scene. My question is, why did they take, that little slow moving speeder over to the farm instead of just loading that on the cargo hold of the Razor Crescent and flying it there? Like, my only reason why they wouldn't is maybe that would have been too loud and alerted the raiders to their presence.
Yeah.
But other than that, it seemed like much more easier type of deal. Plus, then he could still use the Razor Crest weaponry as a defense.
Sure, like they don't show your cards right away.
Yeah,
sort of thing.
He had the thing stripped for parts by the Jawas. I mean, I would think he'd at least want to check around, make sure there's none of those guys floating around.
Yeah, or install the alarm.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm very happy with the way this is going. I think story-wise, there's a little bit of information that we get each week, and I'm really loving it. Any surprises for you guys in this episode? I mean, it seems like there was a lot of dialogue in this episode. It was really great. Any surprises that you guys noticed?
Rob, you want to go first?
I bet you want me to, right?
Well, I mean, I'm looking through my notes over here.
No, I know. I mean, surprises. I wouldn't say surprises. I did love the shot when they went to draw out the ATST and, they escaped from the hut after kind of planting the charges and just narrowly escaping. And they're kind of like, where's the walker? And all of a sudden it rises out of the trees behind him. I thought that especially that and the way that they lit the thing from inside with that red light definitely gave it a very sinister look. So that, it was, as it was stalking him, it kind of seemed like a thing that was alive. A little bit of a surprise that they had it pull up short of the pond that was dug, like it knew it was there or they recognized it was there, and then they still were able to draw it forward later on. It was a little surprised that's kind of how that played out. I thought maybe they would do something and use the Amben phase pulse blaster to kind of disintegrate the ground under its foot and make it slide in that way. But overall, I mean, I didn't have any major issues with the episode, and I thought that it was pretty well done, given the fact that I do feel like it was kind of meant to establish some things regarding him and some of the relationships he's forming.
Okay, so my biggest surprise is actually whenever I found out the age of Julia Jones, who plays Omera, because Kara described her as a beautiful young woman, and I would agree with that statement. And then I looked up, and then Julia Jones is apparently 38 years old, which, I mean, she looks really good in this episode for being 38 years old.
So
that's my biggest surprise.
What'd you say, Rob?
I said that's young for me.
Oh, yeah. It's like spring chicken.
That's right.
But yeah, it's she's a very intriguing character. I think there's something there. I think she's the one that she's got some very interesting leadership qualities. Obviously, she's intuitive, and I think she's one of those characters that seems to have maybe stumbled upon this sanctuary for her own reasons as well. So I can't wait to see what those reasons are if we go that route in the story. I think it's great.
And I think that's a really good point, Ro, because I mean, they established pretty early in the episode that she was like hyper vigilant about her daughter, kind of more so than what you were seeing from any of the other villagers. She was really wanting to keep tabs on where her daughter was and what she was up to. And she reacted very quickly when the raiders came in and displayed, a lot of creativity in terms of putting the two of them out in the river and throwing that basket over the top of them. That, and then the blaster skills that she displayed. I do think that there's a deeper backstory to that character that we're going to learn more about.
Yeah, definitely. And these are the things that Dave Filoni is really great at, is establishing these strong characters and fleshing them out through the course of a series. And definitely can't wait.
I feel like I'm channeling Charles here, because every time I say something, he's typing it in chat. So I'm here to represent you, Charles.
Yeah, we got a great group.
Definitely.
And because of that, we want to thank you guys for stopping by the chat and our live chat. Any last thoughts, guys?
Okay, so one thing I'll say is I'm wanting to know more about those tracking fobs.
Yeah.
And, just give me a great story, Dave Filoni, in Chapter 5.
Yeah. So, guys in the chat, let's think of Trevor, you can help out. Let's think of a question, and we will ask folks in the chat, and whoever gets it right, whoever pops up with the right answer, we'll do a little giveaway. All right. We've got a Rise of Skywalker Sith Jet Trooper that I'd like to give someone in the chat room. If you guys are interested, courtesy of the Scarif Scuttlebutt podcast. And you guys will put this in the mail. We'll pack it up real nice and get it to somebody here. It's really cool. This was actually part of a larger giveaway that we were going to give away to commemorate our 1,138th follower. Hashtag road to 1138, obviously with great significance that number is. But yeah, Trevor, what do we got? We got a couple people in the chat. We'd love to give this thing away. Let's formulate a question, Trevor. Let's see what people say.
Oh, so just a quick trivia question?
Yeah, just a quick trivia question. Whoever pops up in the chat will get the Rise of Skywalker
fantastic.
Jet Trooper.
All right. Well, I got the perfect trivia question right here. So, in Chapter 4, Sanctuary, what's the name of the farming planet? First one to type it in wins.
Farming planet.
Yeah. In the episode.
End the episode. Let's go, guys.
February.
Charles, Carl, Aaron. Who else is on there? Who wants a Sith Jet Trooper?
Speed.
Yeah, so this is this is some good stuff. I mean, The Mandalorian is shaping up to be a really great thing. Looks like Carl might have the answer.
Yep, Carl, you are correct. It is Sorgan.
Excellent. All right, Carl. Looks like this thing is heading to New Zealand. Thank God for the Patreon, because that's going to pay for shipping.
Nice.
But yeah, guys, thank you very much. Carl gets The Rise of Skywalker Sith Jet Trooper for our giveaway here during our little live chat as a thank you. And we're gonna try to do a lot of giveaways when we do these live chats. It's really a lot of fun to have you guys interact in the chat. And Rob, Trevor, thank you guys for stopping by. I hope you guys had some fun reviewing Chapter 4 of The Mandalorian. Sanctuary.
Always. Thanks for the invite. Really appreciate it. And sorry we couldn't fill in for Alex's silky smooth voice, but I know right?
Yeah. So, Rob, tell us where to find your podcast.
Yeah, you can find us on our website, jtapodcast.com, via email at jtapodcast@gmail.com, and on the socials at JTA Podcast. So definitely check us out. Love to have you guys join us for a couple episodes and get in there and give us some ideas of what you'd like to hear.
Awesome. Trevor, what do you do?
Well, I'm the curator of the Star Wars subcategory on sporkle.com. It's a very large website, home to over 2,000 Star Wars quizzes plus over 800,000 other topics. So it's a really great website. Check it out, sporkle.com, sporcle.com. You can also check out my page, sporkle.com/user/TrevorBeast454, and you can see how it's spelled right there in front of you, TREVER Beast. And you can follow me on Twitter at the same thing, TrevorBeast454. There's at least a 90% chance that I'll follow you back if I'm not already following you already. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys in the chat. Thank you guys in the broadcast. We're going to stay tuned for another episode, another chapter. I keep calling them episodes, but they're calling them chapters. So this is really cool. The chapter 5 of The Mandalorian, and looking forward to that. So we've got, quick announcement. I just got word back from, the artist that does all the work at the end of Mandalorian, all the concept art.
Yeah.
He responded to a tweet, and we're going to be talking to him real soon. We'll be able to talk to him about the artwork that he's done for The Mandalorian, and we are very excited for that. Alex is really, really excited to talk to him. But yeah, and I think our next giveaway for our next chat is if we have any Captain Phasma fans. I've got a Captain Phasma foil card that is really, really cool that I put it in a case. And it's a really good, really nice card. Like I said, it's a foil card. The web camera doesn't do it justice, but it's a very handsome piece. But in the meantime, Carl, this is coming to you. Guys, thank you very much. May the force be with you and yours always. And that is the scuttlebutt.
Awesome.
I have spoken.
I have spoken.